Datadog is a SaaS cloud monitoring and security platform that enables full-stack observability for modern infrastructure and applications at any scale. Provide teams dashboarding, alerting, application performance monitoring, infrastructure monitoring, front-end monitoring, and security monitoring in one tightly integrated platform, plus 450 out-of-the-box integrations with technologies including cloud providers, databases, and web servers. Aggregate all your data onto one platform for seamless correlation, enabling teams to troubleshoot and collaborate together in one place, preventing downtime and enhancing performance and reliability. Get started with a free 14-day trial by visiting datadoghq.com/HanselMinutes. That's datadoghq.com/HanselMinutes. Hi, this is Scott Hanselman. This is another episode of Hansel Minutes. Today I'm chatting with Mark Thompson. He's a Senior Developer Relations Engineer at Google, and also known as Mark Techson, Techson, at both marktexon.dev and .com on the internet. How are you?
I'm feeling good, feeling great. Glad to be here. How are you doing?
You know, somebody was asking me how I was doing yesterday, and they caught me on a Monday, and I kind of was like, I don't know. I go back and forth on waking up on Mondays, excited to be about Monday, and then I always wake up and I go, I hate Mondays. You know what I mean? I think a 4-day weekend is the sweet spot. I want 3 days of work and 4 days of weekend.
That feels good. I like that combination. That feels good. 3 days of work.
Right.
Yeah.
We're all arguing about a 3-day weekend. Everyone wants a 3-day weekend. I'm like, no, let's go for a 4-day weekend. Right? Mm-hmm. We should design capitalism so that it only requires 3 days of work and 4 days of, hanging out.
See, that's interesting though. But I think about the shorter work week, and I think that it's going to cause drama no matter what. Because I think what you can still get is the overachievers who are going to be like, I don't need the 4th day. I'm going to do a 3-day, and then I'm going to get, that much more, like 25% more done than everybody else. So what do you do about those people?
That's a tough one. And I also realize that it's not that I don't like working. It's just that I don't like working on stuff that I don't want to work on. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I could just, I might just work 5-6 days a week. It would just be on, podcasting and blogging and stuff that makes me happy.
So is that what makes you happy?
I think being a teacher is the move, right? Because people don't realize that being a teacher is an incredibly selfish thing. Like, they're not doing it for love. They're doing it because they love the feeling that it makes them feel.
Ooh.
Right? They're like,
unpack.
Yeah. Well, because people are like, oh, my teacher, they were so unselfish and so giving. No, it's a drug. Helping people out and lifting them up is a moment, right? And then it's like your teacher is not doing it for you. They are, but they're doing it for themselves. So they can say, look, I just spent 30 years in teaching and all these kids, and I see them everywhere succeeding. And it's be like having unlimited children and they're all successful. That's what's so great about being a teacher.
Unlimited children that are all successful. That is such an interesting point of view. I like that energy.
Well, I think it speaks to how you move and operate, though, right? Because when we talked last in person, we talked about the idea of I want you to win and why that sentence is so important. Why is that sentence so important?
Because I think that when it comes to winning, we have this very scarcity mindset. Like, there can only be so many of us that can win. Right. And it's just like, well, no, that's actually not true. That's actually not true. There's plenty of space for lots of people to win, for lots of people to have the success that they want in their personal and professional lives. But I don't think that we can get there with that attitude of like, my winning is at the cost of your success. But I think if we help each other, like if we do that, right? If we think about helping each other, because you talked about being a teacher and helping, that's also how I help, which is why I think that we vibe a lot when we were speaking, like we were talking, it felt pretty good. I think it's because we both understand that like helping people doesn't cost, it doesn't mean that I have less that I can succeed at because I helped you.
Right. And that idea of scarcity is such a weird thing about the world, because now we see digital scarcity. People are trying to invent scarcity in a digital world where things are unlimited, right? Like I can give you this file for electrons, not molecules, but electrons, because electrons are effectively free at that level. Hey, look, I sent you the email. I forwarded you to the book. I gave you the movie or whatever. It's just like, here it is. But time and energy and spending time with humans, that's the scarcity. That's the limit, right? Mm-hmm. But we've been trained to guard our success such that, and we look at billionaires and people who succeed and go, well, now there's already 5 billionaires. It can't be 6. We have enough billionaires, right? We have enough billionaires. Why can we not all win? So then the question is, what is winning, right?
Yes, there you go. That is the question. Because I had this conversation with someone on Twitter, and they were like, well, what does winning mean? Does that mean we'll all become billionaires? I'm like, well, I don't think that's winning for everybody. I think for somebody, being a billionaire is definitely what they want. That's the win. But I also think what's interesting is like happiness being the win. And so how do you become happy, right?
I saw this thing. This is a like a little parable.
Sure.
I saw it at a sandwich shop. An American factory CEO type person goes down to like somewhere in Central America, and he meets a fisherman who's like playing the guitar and hanging out with his family, and he fishes occasionally, and he has a subsistence living, but he mostly hangs out with his family and takes naps and stuff. And he says that, man, the fish that you're catching are amazing. I love everything you're doing. I could do some investment. I could buy you a couple of extra boats. We could take this thing national. We could make a global company. And the guy's like, well, okay, well, what's going to happen? What's the goal here? And the guy's like, well, when you get enough money that you could like retire, you could sell the company and you could retire to a small fishing village in Central America where you could play the guitar and hang out with your family.
Mm-hmm.
Like, isn't that what we're doing right now? Like, I'm here sitting, working at Microsoft, talking about how maybe one of these days I'll be able to retire and be a teacher. I should just shut up and retire and be a teacher now.
And just be a teacher now. I would tell you that. That's what I would tell you right now. If that's the thing that you really want to do, then do that. But see, here's where like helping each other win and supporting each other all comes into play, because you have to have a certain life setup such that you could do that and maintain a level of happiness that you've become accustomed to. And so if people are helping each other get there, right, become successful, like, doesn't it mean that we could figure out a way for you to retire now and become? But then
what's retire, right? Like retire, we say the level of comfort or whatever. Like the idea is that what do you need? You need safety. You need interpersonal relationships. You need food. You need a house. Do I need a pool? No, I don't need a pool. Do I need a private jet? No, I don't need a private jet, right? Do I need fast internet? Yes, that's kind of a requirement. Like I want to be able to get my Netflix, right? Do I need all the streaming services or maybe just some of the streaming services? Like what does luxury mean? It means, for some people, it means 3 trips to Sandals Resort every year. For other people, it means a trip to Disneyland once a decade. So there's that slider bar of what does success mean to someone and what is required for me to quote unquote retire when we're really describing a job shift, not a retirement.
Right. Or even more so, a shift into more happiness.
And less stuff.
Right. And less stuff. So speaking of less stuff, I'm actually a clothing minimalist. And I have to be very specific about that, because a lot of people will say, well, you're a minimalist, but you have all this camera gear or you have all this computer stuff. Well, so with minimalism, you really focus on what brings you joy. And it's okay to have things that bring you joy. But the things that you don't care about, why are you collecting those things? I don't care about clothes for 99% of the time. If you looked at my closet, what you see is a stack of black shirts, a stack of gray shirts, 5 pairs of pants. Right. And I rotate those outfits all the time. Now, the reason I didn't say it's 100% of the time that I don't care what I wear, because when I go on stage, then I actually do care a little bit about what I wear when I'm on stage. But that's for a different reason. That's for representation and like making myself more visible to people who come from where I come from. So if they see a guy with some Jordans on and gold chains, they'd be like, wait, and he still works at Google? And he's smart, and like he didn't have to like not be his authentic self in this moment for that. I'm like, see, that's helpful to people who want to see themselves in spaces that I get to take part in, right?
Yeah,
but for the most part,
dress to impress, right?
Right.
It just depends on who you're trying to impress.
Who are you trying to impress? But for the most part, I don't care about clothes. Like I just don't. I have a lot of gym shoes. You know why? And that it's really not a business reason, but an influence reason. Before the pandemic started, I used to go to schools quite a bit, like high schools, and talk to kids, and even elementary schools. And when I used to dress up with my like shiny shoes on and my slacks, they would be so disinterested because they couldn't relate. But as soon as I walked into a high school with a pair of, D&P 6s, you could hear them whispering about the shoes. And then they want to ask you questions. And then they think that, oh, this guy isn't from another planet. He actually might know something about where I come from and what I'm going through. Let me ask him. Let me open up. Let me participate a little bit more. So that's why I started collecting Jordans.
So somebody sees the dunks and they're like, well, hang on, I can have that and I can be smart and I can go and present to people.
That's right. And it doesn't matter that I'm wearing them because, look, Scott, I tell you, for my whole career, I have been one of X number of people in a room, but the only Black person, especially in engineering spaces. And a large part of my earlier career was spent on assimilation. Like I didn't want to stand out because I wanted to fit in with everybody else because, I want to be with the in crowd. And now I feel like I almost sometimes go to the extreme of trying to stand out because of that same reason, because I don't want the new kids to feel like they have to change themselves to be an engineer.
Well, the trick is though, building that internal resilience to be yourself and teach yourself that it's okay. Because right now, today, it's July of 2022. I feel mentally prepared for high school. I could go back and I could crush it. I'm ready to go. Let's go to high school. And I watch these shows where I'm like, man, if I only had the confidence of a 50-year-old white man, I would just crush high school right now. You know what I mean? I wish I could go and tell 16-year-old Scott that none of it matters. Dance like nobody's watching. All that kind of stuff. All those funny fortune cookie things that they tell you. It's all true.
All of it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true.
Live your best life. Because none of that matters. Because I'm going to my 30th high school reunion next week. And I just don't care because I'm killing it.
Right. And it's so funny. I have some nieces and nephews who are in high school and college age now. And I'm always telling them listen, what you think matters right now, I get that it feels like the entire world, but it doesn't. That stuff does not matter. Focus on this. Make sure that you are having a blast. Right? Make sure you're making memories of that you can enjoy yourself and that you're moving toward what you want. What do you want out of life? And then start moving toward what you want. If you focus on that, it is really hard to lose. When you're at that high school age. Of course, this is an ideal situation where you don't have other factors working against you, like living in extreme poverty or a really dangerous neighborhood or something, right? Where you don't have that luxury of just being free, right? So I totally acknowledge that. But I still believe wholeheartedly that so much stuff that we care about just doesn't matter. And I'm just yeah, none of that stuff matters. I don't know why we're so focused on it. Nobody cares. That's why I stopped, again, going back to the clothing thing. One of the other reasons why I stopped caring about my clothes for 99% of the time, because for 99% of the time, nobody really cared. Only when I was in front of people presenting did they care.
Yeah.
And they cared a little bit. But on the street, nobody cared that I wore the same shirt 3 times in a row. Nobody cared. And I was
man, I had a favorite orange shirt. Not a lot of orange shirts out there in the world. And in high school, somebody was keeping track. One day they came up to me with a sheet where they had checked off the days that I wore the orange shirt. That was my favorite shirt. I never wore that shirt again because they went and did that to me.
I cannot believe that somebody would spend the time to do that.
Yeah, to seriously make graph paper with a calendar and go and say, you wore the orange shirt twice last week. Did you wash it? And the thing is, though, today I would have been said, yes, I did. And I'll wear it 4 times next week. You know what I mean? I like this shirt. You got I need to get that into my kids' heads. But where does that come from? Some people seem to come built in with that, right? We talk about welcoming people into tech. And if the first thing that happened on day 1 of your first day at tech, then you're going to feel I don't belong here. But if it happens on the first day of your 10th year in tech, you're going to be man, I know what I'm doing. So why is it that first on-ramp, that on-ramp to the freeway is so important? And we need to get people built in with that, the right amount of caring what people think. You should care what your boss thinks to a point. You should care what your coworkers think. There's a balance between confidence and overconfidence, between feeling a little uncomfortable because I'm in a new situation and feeling comfortable because I belong here. How do you teach that?
Because I think you teach them context. So you care what your coworkers think up until a certain point. Well, what's their context? Well, I care about what they think about the way that I respect them when they are sharing ideas, when we're collaborating where we're working, but I don't care if they don't like what I eat for lunch or they don't like my clothes.
There you
Like, I
go.
don't care about that. I don't care about what their opinion of what my movie selections are or my musical taste or the car that I drive. I don't care about that, but I do care that they feel respected and that we're collaborating effectively. And so I think the context of that, because even with like my little guy, I have a small child, he'll be 5 soon. Um, we go back and forth where, like, with my wife, I tell her, like, don't call the stuff that he likes weird, even if you don't understand it, because you like what you like and he likes what he likes. Because I'm trying to like circumvent that same process for him to get that confidence of like, you can like what you like and that's okay.
Yeah.
And so anyway, going back to the work context of it, I think it's all contextual, and you have empathy for the people around you. So you, like I said, that's why I mentioned respect and collaboration, because those are the two kind of like core principles, I think, of being a good teammate is respect and collaboration. If you can get those two things, and we don't have to be friends. Like, I don't have to tell you my life story at work. Like, that's not a requirement. It's cool if we do it. If we don't, we don't. But do I respect you? Do you feel respected? Then that should enable us to work together.
Yeah, that idea of liking what you like and not feeling bad about it is super important. I also help people when I'm teaching, when I'm mentoring, that they should like the language that they like, that they can get a job in the language or the framework that they like. Don't let somebody tell you that this JavaScript framework is not going to work for you, or don't use .NET or don't use Ruby because you'll never be able to get a job. Success is the only metric that works, and somebody out there is being successful with that framework or that language or that web thing.
Totally. That, so can we just like talk about that problem in the tech industry right now? Like the extremist point of views about technology that I do not think are helpful to people, especially like, because it all comes back to the same thing. It comes back to a way of like either gatekeeping or trying to keep people out in general when you think about it. Because it's like, if you tell somebody, oh, Ruby is dead, right? Like, no, right? Like, no, it's not. There are jobs out there, and just this focus on like, use my tool, use my language, use my thing. This is the right way. This is the right way. And as a mentor, I wonder, how do you deal with this? How do you like guide people where you're not telling them? It's like you have to give them a direction to go in as a mentor, but how do you keep it objective enough where you're not pigeonholing them into like only use .NET,
right,
because you're guaranteed, but direct enough where they know where to go?
See, that is the challenging thing about picking a language. Like, let's use an analogy here. I want to write the great world novel. Is it the great American novel? Is it the great French novel? Who's my audience? Do I want 1,000 people to read the book or 1 billion people to read the book? Right? Do I write the book in my native language, or do I write it in English? All of those things all depend. Who do you want your audience to be? And you have to decide that is it more important to reach a broad number of people? Is it more important to reach the right people? Right? Is it 1 billion of everybody, or is it just I need to reach 100 people and they speak this language or they do that thing? So if you're going to do a thing in a particular language, what platform is it going to be? What is it going to be? Websites? Is it going to be Android? Is it going to be whatever? Would I write an Android app in Ruby and try to finagle it into some kind of a PWA, or maybe I don't know. But all things are possible. You just have to ask yourself, who's your audience? Is this going to work for them? Is it going to work for you? And then tell them to go do it. But is it the language they love more, or is it the success that they love more? You know what I mean?
That's heavy, because I tell people, so if this conversation comes up where they ask me like, what language should I use to accomplish XYZ goal? 90% of the time, I'm going to say, just focus on shipping. Use whatever you know that's going to accomplish the goal. And here's the thing. People say, well, that's kind of a cop-out answer. I'm like, well, no, it's not, right? Because here's what you're going to find. No matter how well laid your plans are, architecture, engineering, etc., it's hard. So you will have to redo parts of your application no matter what. No matter what you build, you're going to have to redo parts of it. So the refactors will come. And you might find out that you've gotten to a certain level where you do have to kind of redo it later. And they say, well, but I don't want to waste, those work hours. I'm like, well, guess how many hours you wasted thinking about what you're going to do and you never did anything.
Dude, this is my son doing an essay. And I'm like, you need to write a draft and then throw the draft away and then write the real draft and then revise it and then do the final. He's like, no, I'll just do the final first. Really? You're just going to write the paper first, the first time correctly. It's the same kind of thing. It's better that you slap the keyboard and write bad code and then revise it and refactor it than you sit around and don't write any code at all.
Correct. Because you learn so much. So speaking of learning, right? So before I joined Google, so part of my Google story came from me trying to be an entrepreneur because I was building a mobile app called Totally Strong, which is a fitness app. And I thought I had some interesting ideas around how I could enter the space. I had spent so many months, Scott, just thinking about what I was going to make and what tools I was going to use. Was I going to learn Android and Kotlin? Was I going to learn Swift to do it? And I just kept going through all this drama. And then I just said, you know what? I'm just going to pick something. I'm going to make it. And then I'm going to go. So what I ended up doing was picking Flutter at the time. And I just built something. And I just built it. And it felt so good to actually ship. But at the end, I didn't know everything that I needed to know. And I ended up having to redo parts of the application. Like that just happens. And I'm going to redo it again, I think, because I want to do it in web tech instead of using Flutter. Like I just want to do it as a website that can scale to a PWA and then not even like have to worry about a website and a mobile app. I just want to do it all one time. But you know why I know I want to do that? Because I did it already. You see, I did it. I built the app. I deployed the app. I made it work on both platforms. I heard from users. So I know what didn't work, but I couldn't have known that this is what I want to do if I didn't already do something. Right? I did it. So now I know.
Hey friends, this is Scott. I hope you're enjoying this chat, but we are going to take a brief break and we're going to have a chat with our sponsor. Our sponsor, Raygun, today makes shows like this possible. You know, sponsorships are a big part of having a podcast. It allows me to pay for hosting and all the transcripts, as well as having my wonderful editor, Mandy, go and edit the show for us. And Raygun has sponsored a ton of episodes of the show. And I don't just have anyone sponsor a show. I like to have products that I use, products that I'm excited about, sponsor the show. And Raygun is one of those products. I think sometimes people, JD, they think that you're giving me kickbacks. And in truth, other than sponsoring a couple episodes of the show, I will say you did give me a certificate at my favorite bagel shop. So just want to come out here and say it that, yes, I did receive a kickback for sending thousands and thousands of trial users of Raygun.com. You gave me a gift certificate to my bagel shop.
You're welcome, Scott. We know the way to your heart.
Well, I mean, that's the thing that you find a product that you're excited about and you just want to run around and you want to say, have you heard the news? Because people can make their software better and you just try it. Just do the trial. It just takes you a weekend.
And look, honestly, one of the coolest things as a tech, founder is I was reading your blog before I started this company. The value goes both ways. And partly, sure, we're trying to get customers, but it's wonderful to be able to actually give back and work with people that you admire in the industry that are helping everybody. So it's a real pleasure.
Yeah, I really like this idea of my friend Anwan Simmons, who I've had on the show before, talks about lending privilege. And I remember meeting you all when you were 4 or 5 people with a dream in Wellington in a tiny little office. And now you're available in 150 countries. You've got error, crash, and performance monitoring to thousands and thousands of software teams around the world. And I just have been a tiny part of that. And I appreciate you all sponsoring Hansel Minutes. And I would encourage our listeners to go to raygun.com and give it a try. Take an afternoon, implement error monitoring, crash reporting, performance monitoring in your apps, do it in a couple hours, and then go and impress your boss with the amazing thing that you plugged in to your software. Does this make it better? That idea of I did it is so important. Like, is it more fun to talk about software or write about software than it is to write software? Like, how do you know I did the thing? You got to just do it. I always recommend when people are learning, you can do the little cute, let's make a Connect 4 game. Let's do a dice game. Let's do a Rubik's Cube, but make a project that you care about, that you're passionate about. Host your own website so you know what it feels like to quote unquote carry the pager. So when the website goes down, when someone on Twitter says, hey, your website's down. Ooh, I don't get freaked out when a website's down. I'm like, all right, a new problem to solve. I'm going to learn about rotating my SSL certificates today, or I'm going to learn about whatever, and then I'm going to come up with a way that won't happen again. Those things are important. And you can't read about that in a book. You just got to live it.
Well, that's how I've been so successful in my career is that, so I do really well at interviews. That is just a skill that I have. I love interviewing. because I love telling the stories about the things that I've learned. So you ask me a question and I'm like, oh yeah, I have a great answer for that. Because one time I built this thing and it was really hard to build and I made a lot of mistakes. But you know what I learned from it? This is what I learned and this is how I improved later. And I have 1,000 stories like that because of the I try to tell people to stop being so afraid when they code because I'm like, it's already broken or it doesn't exist. It's in one of those two states. The end goal or the end idea is that it doesn't work as it is now. So just do it. And if it's not perfect, so what? So what? It doesn't work. So you can't lose anything, because I have a lot of people who get into code and they're really timid to make a change. And I'm like, does it already work? Like, no. I'll say, well, then you can't really make it worse. It doesn't work. Just do something and learn.
That idea is the thing about the resilience. We mentioned the idea of tech resilience. I want to write the great novel. I want to write the great program. So I'll stare at a piece of paper rather than write a bad one.
Mm-hmm.
You got to take a little step. I mentioned before, I have had a blog for a long time and this podcast. The first several years sucked. And they're still out there. You can go and read them. You can go and listen to the early podcasts and the early blogs and determine that wasn't a great one. But I'm glad that I did them. And it was better that I recorded those shows than not doing them at all. So launch that thing, do that project, make that app. You will be so much happier if you do it than if you think about it. You don't want analysis paralysis.
Right. And I was just going to say that this is the exact story that anybody who's done anything will tell you. This story is not unique to us. It's not unique to you or myself. If you look at a YouTuber, you go back, like somebody who I really respect from a video production point of view is Marquez Brownlee, MKBHD.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at his early stuff, it is not good, but he did it and he got better. But he'll tell you this is not good. Look at all the mistakes that I made. But it's how he got to where he is through those mistakes, through those learning. If you look at the Angular YouTube channel, I work on the Angular product. Those first videos I did, man, I look at them and I'm just like, oh, this is hard to watch. This is really hard to watch because I was doing some producing at home because of the pandemic. And I was just like, yeah, this is bad. But that's okay because I did it. And now when I make something, it's way better. I'm faster and I'm more effective and I get to be more creative. All those things came from actually doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we talked at the beginning about the idea of we want you to win because you and I fundamentally believe that there is room for everyone to win.
Mm-hmm.
How much of that is philosophical versus real? Can everyone win? Does someone have to fail for someone else to win? You got real quiet there and lit up, and then you're like,
It's a lot to think about because I want to say, so I'll be realistic. Everybody can win. Everybody won't win because not everyone will participate.
Ooh. It's not that they lost because they lost. It's lost because they never showed up.
They never showed up. They didn't believe in the process. So on Twitter, I'm really big into philanthropy. And philanthropy in different ways, whether it be financial philanthropy or in time, resources, all kinds of stuff. I work behind the scenes. I connect people to jobs all the time. I'm like, hey, I know this person.
Yeah.
We talked about this when we met in person about the warm intro, right? How far that goes. We do stuff like that to help everybody win. But the people who don't participate, they don't be a part of that flow. And the more of us who do this together, we end up creating a circle of influence of everybody in that circle starts winning. And that circle does not have a boundary.
Yes.
Or sorry, an upper bound.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, we were there at the conference and then we were standing in a circle and someone is slightly outside the circle. All the circle had to do was turn slightly and open itself up and make it so our body language was not closed and facing each other. And the circle got bigger. And four people, four 6 foot plus tall guys in a circle ended up turning out to be 15 or 20, all kinds of folks, all genders, all heights in a big giant circle. And we just kept making it bigger and bigger because we decided to.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have to have someone leave the circle to make room. We just expanded the circle. You know what I mean?
Right. And then guess what happens? Someone will say, well, but you can't facilitate something at that scale from a single point anymore. And you're right. So what do? You don't really, that doesn't mean a circle cannot exist. You just create more circles and they become smaller particles in a bigger body, right? And that's just what you do. That's just what you do. And I really do believe that we can do that. And again, the reason I say everyone won't participate, because some people don't even believe that what I'm talking about is possible. Like they don't believe it's possible. And they may have their own bias of like, nope, that person doesn't deserve. Well, so, okay, here you go, right? You are choosing the boundaries in which you say somebody doesn't deserve, and then you're creating the conflict between this thing, and you're kind of like artificially introducing scarcity.
It also gets to a sense of optimism, though, as well. Like intellectually, yeah, I get that maybe not everyone can win, but it may be just because we've been wired to be told that by society that not everyone can win. You know, everyone wins on Star Trek Next Generation, right? That's the society that we're all trying to get, where you could decide to be a sculptor or a starship captain, and you all have the same stuff, and you don't have to worry about food. But I insist on being an optimist. That even though maybe not everyone can win, I don't care. I'm still going to make sure that everybody wins.
Right.
It does not have to be a zero-sum game.
Right. It's just like unrelenting pursuit of this idea that it's like this one tenet in some religions where they try to say like you aspire to be like, you know, the chosen like figurehead of your religion. And people say, well, you fall short, but you don't stop the pursuit of like this improved version of yourself, even though it may not be possible to attain the level that you're going for. But it takes an optimistic point of view to say it's worth trying. It takes a pessimistic point of view to say, why try? Because we'll never get there.
That's a great point. You know, do you ever get the thing where if you talk about imposter syndrome, someone's like, "Oh, well, if Mark has imposter syndrome, then how could I ever? I shouldn't even get into tech." Because
I've heard that, yeah.
Because Mark had imposter syndrome, you know, or Scott Hanselman's imposter. So clearly, I should just stop. Like I should quit everything. That's like saying, you know, I should never do gymnastics because I'll never be Simone Biles.
Right.
So that's my plan. I'm just going to hang out at the house because I love gymnastics, but I don't want to do it because, well, you know, Simone already locked that down. There only can be one. It's like the Highlander.
Right. There can only be one. That mentality has like harmed me in so many ways because I am a person who tends to compare myself to like the like top of whatever field that I'm like in or whatever aspect that I'm in. And for a long time, so when I was in high school, I was a very good artist. Like I used to draw comics. It was very good objectively. Right. But I wasn't like ready for a job at Marvel upon graduating. But because I felt like I wasn't there when I graduated, because I knew some kids who were, I felt like I didn't want to continue because I couldn't see the path to getting better or what my better could look like. That's what I couldn't see is what my better could look like because I was like, I'll never be like Jason Proctor, which was the kid who was excellent at art when we were both 17. It was like two different levels, but I'm just like, but there was so much space. Like, I wish I could go back and tell Mark, like, look, dude, keep drawing. There's so much space. Not everybody has to be like, right? You look at the NBA. Yeah, there's one LeBron James, but there's like what, like 500 or 600 players in the NBA. You mean to tell me that like all of them should not have played because they wouldn't be LeBron?
Yeah.
Like what?
You know, I get intimidated by looking at some people's LinkedIns, and I'll meet somebody and I'll find out that they have a PhD, but they never mentioned it. They've just been walking around quietly with a doctorate in computer science or whatever. I'm looking here at your LinkedIn, and I see you have a master's degree in computer science. But still, 10 years later, on the same LinkedIn, you did a nano degree in web development. What that tells me is that you're like, you know, I'm going to go learn more about front end. Right? Things may have changed since 2006 when I did my master's. You didn't say, I have a master's. I'm not going to mess around with some little nano nothing certificate from online. You did it anyway. And they take up the same space on your LinkedIn. They are equal. And I think that's like, that says that you're a learner.
Yeah. I believe in learning. And I believe in learning and improvement. Now that I understand that you can become better and that you're better is a thing. So I used to do bodybuilding for a long time. And one of the things was, it didn't matter if you won the show a lot of times for people. It was, did I look better than the last show? Right. So the last
you are the competition.
I'm the competition. Exactly. Yeah. And like, that's a really big mentality in like bodybuilding. A lot of guys will just say, or people in general will just be like, hey, I looked better than my last one. Yes, I want to win. I'm going to keep working till I win. But the like competition is like getting better and better and better. And you also realize that there may be somebody who's just genetically so far away from you that you will never beat that person. Yeah. That it's just not in the cards. But does that mean you should stop? No. Because one, they might not show up. to the show that day. Right?
That's actually a really good thing. Like I can't get that job. Well, maybe the person that was supposed to get the job didn't show up.
That's
and
right.
You did show up. Showing up. People don't give showing up enough credit. I try to tell my kids, just show up.
You don't know who's going to be there.
Go to the dance. Go to the thing. Go to the user group. Go to the club. Whatever the thing is, go. Because otherwise...
show up.
Yeah.
No, that's funny because you said, because like there are shows that I competed in where some of the top people in my like class did not show up and I did better because they didn't show up. So who cares? Nobody's going to look at their record and be like, well, but guess who wasn't there? Ron Jackson wasn't there. So that's why Mark did better. Like, who cares? Nobody looks at it like that. They say, oh yeah, Mark scored, he placed fifth in this contest.
I may or may not have won some seniors level Taekwondo things when the dude that could have kicked my butt didn't show up. But I still got the medal.
Exactly. And who's going to look back and be like, well, Scott got that medal, but it's not real. It's like, no, that's not the way people look at the world. In 20 years, nobody will say that. In 5 years, nobody will care. Like, yeah. Which
is important. And to close, we want to talk about the difference between winning and participation trophies. We're not saying everyone's going to win, a participation trophy. We're saying that everyone can be successful and happy and have a career in tech where they feel like they're building cool stuff and they're enjoying the people they work with. Like that's the goal, right?
Mm-hmm. If we can get there, I just think that changes. I know what tech did for me and my family.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up poor on the South Side, like how technology just took me completely out of you just would never know. Right. And that changed everything for me. And so why wouldn't I want to pass that forward to more people to give them an opportunity to just be in a whole different like lifestyle based on a job?
That is the thing. Yeah. Because nobody knows where you came up.
Right.
Nobody knows where I came up. Nobody knows where anybody came up because we can sit down and in 5 minutes start talking about some cool new tech thing that we read about online and we're geeking out. And that's what brings us together. Mm-hmm. And that's the common thread is that excitement about, ooh, I can use that to build something tonight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Mark Thompson, for this wide-ranging conversation about how we want you to win.
Thanks for having me. I've loved talking with you, so thanks so much for inviting me.
We've been chatting with Mark Thompson. He's a senior developer relations engineer at Google, and he's also an award-winning instructor. Won an award at Northwestern's in 2017. You can find him online. His online name is Mark Techson, Techson. You can find him on Twitter and all over where you get your internet content. This has been another episode of Hansel Minutes, and we'll see you again next week.